So it's been a while since I've made any kind of Lightroom editing tutorial, but I've been working on a project recently where I make a digital zine, and I was trying to decide what I wanted the first issue of my digital zine to be. And I keep on going back to one of my favorite photography trips I've taken, and that was to New York in 2019. Now, one of my favorite things to do is to go back and re-edit old photos and update them with my current editing styles. So I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to go through and edit some of my favorite photos that I've ever taken with you guys. Like I said, I shot these photos back in 2019. Now, I'd been to New York one time before that, but I wasn't really shooting any kind of street photography or anything like that. And I would say this photo, or maybe this trip in general, is one of the reasons I fell in love with street photography, and it's why I take the kinds of photos I do today. So this first photo is from Chinatown. Now, the first thing I always do in my photos, I like the 4:3 aspect ratio. So I always crop my photos to the 4:3 aspect ratio. Now, I will be editing all of the photos in this video with my preset pack, which is available to buy down in the description. One of my favorite presets to use is my Gold 2 preset. I like starting with it. I think it looks really good, even from the start, but it's a little cold, so we're gonna warm it up a little bit. Now, if I really wanted to, I could say this photo was finished. I would say it's pretty perfect, but we're gonna do a couple things. I love my graduated filters, so I'm gonna bring it in here on the right side of the image and kind of darken it up and just add a little bit more contrast to the image. I really like the light shining through on these buildings. I really love this man and his daughter that are just walking right here. Make a little bit more emphasis on them. I'm gonna bring another graduated filter. This one, I'm gonna brighten it up just a tiny bit. I'm going to take another brush and I'm going to subtract and add a little bit of the darkness back into the sidewalk and the road, possibly over there, out of the light shining through past them. I think that looks really good. Now, I've streamlined my presets to make them super easy and quick to edit most of my photos. It's not a one-click and done kind of thing, but if you're going for that moody, dramatic, but it does have a little bit more of a film-like look rather than looking so digital, which I really like. Now, I don't think there is actually much more to do to this image. I think it looks great. One thing we could possibly do, I will grab a brush and I will add a little bit of clarity and a little bit of texture here to the road and the sidewalk, just to help make them pop a little bit more. Other than that, I think this photo is perfect. The next photo we're gonna edit is another one of my favorites. It's a very iconic scene. I know you guys have probably seen this shot a million times. The funny story about this shot is everyone was probably backed up like 100 feet behind us to get this photo at sunset, but we were like, well, we don't feel like waiting or getting in this line of photographers, so we just went out in front of them. Maybe not the best photography etiquette thing to do, but we just walked out, snapped these photos real quick, and we moved on. And let's look through the presets and see. That black and white actually looks really nice. I think we're gonna go with Gold 2 again. Like I said, it is my favorite preset. It is my go-to. And this image is pretty cold as well, so that's a little too much. So I think we're gonna keep it about right there. I'm going to increase the contrast just a tiny bit. I'm actually going to go and bump up the orange saturation just to make that sunset look a little bit more vibrant. The next thing we're going to do is bring a brush and paint the road here, the cobblestone road. I think that looks really good, and we're gonna bump the clarity of it just a tiny bit. It kind of brings a little bit more of that light reflecting in the road, which looks really, really good. I think we're gonna do a graduated filter. We're gonna bring it in on this side, and let's see if we bump this up just a tiny bit, maybe a little too much there, since the sun is shining on the other side. We don't want to brighten up the other side. This photo is looking pretty good. Now, one thing that I recommend doing to help clean up your images is we're going to go Photoshop out some of these people. There's these two women walking right there, and then these people over here. We're going to go into Photoshop and see what we can do to clean up this image a little bit. Now, if you don't know how to directly bring a photo from Lightroom into Photoshop, you just click right click on the image and edit in Photoshop. And here we go. First, we're gonna duplicate the layer and we'll just leave it at that. I don't use Photoshop a whole lot, so my Photoshop skills are kind of novice. So first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna take the spot healing brush. I'm gonna make the size a little bit bigger and we're gonna just kind of start out and see what we can do. There we go, it removed her almost perfectly. So now we're gonna try the same with the other girl. I feel like this might be a little bit more complicated. Let's see. Yeah, that didn't really work out as well. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to... Now this is a good example that the spot healing brush does not always work. So what we're going to do, we are going to press Option on the keyboard if you're a Mac user, and we're going to just kind of clean this up and slowly erase her out. Now we're going to take this bush, just kind of cover up some of these details, and we're just going to kind of fill that in and make it look as clean as possible. It's very tiny in the image, so it's not really going to be all that noticeable. We're going to take bits and pieces of... So now we're going to take a look at these people over here. We're going to see what we can do with the spot healing brush. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. I have a feeling we might have to go back over with the clone stamp tool again, but that's okay. There we go. I think we cleaned up the image there. Now let's zoom back out and see how it looks. There we go. I think that looks good. So we're going to save. There we go. I think it cleaned up the image very nicely, and I'd say we are done editing this photo. Now this photo, when I went on this trip to New York, it was like my bucket list photo that I really wanted. I really wanted to get a nice photo of the Empire State Building from a different angle, not the stereotypical top of the rock photo. So I really love this photo. And then let's go ahead and apply our Gold 2 preset to this. Now it is looking very, very cold. I'm just gonna bring that up. Now the blacks are looking a little too washed out. So we're gonna come down to our tone curve and adjust this and see what we can do. That's a little too much. Okay, so I think we'll leave it at that. I will come up here with a graduate filter and brighten that up a little bit, add a bit of contrast in, see how clarity, and I think that looks really good. So I hope you guys understand why I use graduated filters so much. They can really help transform an image into what you want. And I prefer using them over brush tools most of the time if I can. Now something about this image is just looking kind of boring to me. So we're going to come down to our saturation, see what we can do, add a little bit of color. It looks like all the color is going in on that side, so what we're going to do, I'm going to take a brush this time, and we're going to up the saturation and the warmth of this side of the image just a little bit. Play around with the exposure. There we go. I think that's looking really good. Now, the light is hitting this side of the Empire State Building from what it looks like. So I'm gonna try and accent that. To subtract and make sure we don't have anything on this front side of the building. We're going to take out some of the sun, we're going to keep all the buildings on the bottom, and there we go. This next image is pretty cool. This is of the vessel in Hudson Yards in New York City. Now, from what I've heard, you can't really go up on the vessel anymore due to reasons. So I think this photo is really cool because I couldn't really get a good wide image because of the lens I had. I was using a 24-70. I couldn't get like a good wide image that showed the true scale of the vessel. So I was able to get this one, and let's go ahead and crop this. I love the people at the bottom of the image kind of looking into the vessel. I think this is such a cool photo, and I think I actually prefer this over if I was to get a nice wide image of the vessel. So we're gonna look at our presets here. Okay. I almost think black and white for this photo could look really cool. So we're gonna edit this photo in black and white, something a little different. There's not a whole lot of color to this image anyways, so I feel like black and white is oddly fitting for this. So we're just gonna adjust the exposure of that a little bit. We're gonna play with the contrast and see what we can do. If you bring down the contrast all the way. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm gonna make sure that you can see the people on the bottom of this image very well. It's a very cool image because you kind of have the focus on the vessel here, but then you also have the focus on the people here who are also looking at the other focus of the image with you. I think it's really cool. I'm gonna play with the highlights here. I like the highlights shining through up there. Then we're gonna bring in a graduated filter. I'm going to see about bringing a little bit of sunlight into the image up there. There we go. I think that looks amazing. The final photo we're going to edit is possibly my favorite photo that I have ever taken for whatever reason. I remember when I shot this, I had to run out in the road in between the cars, and I shot the photos, and I didn't really think I got like that good of an image. I didn't realize how much I loved this photo until I got back to edit it. So I'm excited to edit this photo again, crop it to a 4:3. I think it's really cool because you have this taxi here with the lights shining and they are reflecting on the other cars behind them, and then you have the towering World Trade Center in front of it, and you have the Oculus kind of peeking through right there. So we're gonna go through my presets and see what we have. There we go. I think Gold 2, once again, is probably the best one. I love this preset so much. And we're gonna look here. I really love how it made the reflecting lights pop on these cars here. So make the image a little bit colder. Since we were shooting this in like blue hours, so we're going to accent that. Well, actually, after I bring down the highlights, let's see. There we go. I think that's the perfect medium. I'm gonna bring the contrast up a good bit. It really darkens the surrounding, but keeps the World Trade Center fairly bright. We're gonna come down to the red saturation, see if we can make that pop a little bit more. There we go. And then we're going to bring in a brush tool, and this is one of my favorite examples of why I love using the brush tool, bringing up clarity and texture in an image, because you can very much highlight the road down here. We're going to, it doesn't really make much of a difference there, but as you bring up that clarity, without going overboard with it, because you can easily go overboard with clarity. And then maybe even play with the exposure a little bit. There we go, that looks so good. Now let's bring in a graduated filter here on this building. And I'm actually going to increase the saturation a little bit, bring up some contrast. Then we're gonna bring in one more graduated filter on the other side and see about increasing a little bit of the saturation. That's a lot. Now I love this image because there's such a wide variety of color to it. You have the red, you have the blues. Now I'm thinking, since this is blue hour, we might adjust the tint and bring a little magenta, a little purple in. I think the photo looks pretty good. And I hope you guys can kind of see why this is one of my favorite photos I've ever taken. I'm super happy with all of these images. I was then, and I especially am now. So you guys can look out for this digital zine, the first issue being New York City, coming out hopefully soon. I would like to get it out within the next month. The way it's gonna work, I'm gonna sell it on my website, and for a pretty cheap price, nothing crazy. And I'll have prints of these photos for sale on my website as well if any of you guys are interested, as well as my Lightroom presets, which are available to buy down below. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe. And I have a lot more videos coming soon in the future. I have a lot of videos where I actually go out and take photos and kind of document that process. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and go out and shoot.